Melbourne Cup. Which runner has history on its side?
In 2015, I was living with my then boyfriend.
I'm not born.
I was 18 at the time, living in a very sketchy apartment building in a not-so-good neighborhood. When I say sketchy, I mean crack house type sketchy. You'd find anything from alcoholics, severely mentally ill people, to drug dealers and addicts living in these apartments. And the police were called to the property a few times a week. They even drove by just to check for safety reasons. There was an incident once during the night. One of the neighbors knocked on a door, and my boyfriend went to open it up while I was asleep. One of the neighbors, an addict who happened to be severely schizophrenic, was at the door, and he barged into the apartment and threatened my boyfriend. Fortunately, he managed to calm him down and got him out of the apartment. For reasons like this, we brought a live security camera that we installed at our door and also connected to our TV so that we could easily check who was there. Everything was fine for a few weeks, until this one night. My boyfriend's best friend was sleeping over this weekend. We were all sleeping. I guess it was around 3 to 4 a.m. at the time when I woke up to someone ringing the doorbell. The camera was connected to the TV, but there was also a small screen attached to the door that I could activate to see who was outside. Since everyone was sleeping in the living room, I walked into the hallway to check on the small screen instead of turning on the TV. When I pressed the button, I saw two guys wearing hoodies looking at the camera. I paused for a second because I didn't fully understand what was going on. Not until they looked at each other, nodded, and then one of the guys reached his hand towards the camera and ripped it out, making the screen go black. I stood there for about 5 seconds before I realized what had happened. I ran back to the living room and shook my boyfriend awake, almost yelling, while also whispering, "Quick, get up! Someone just stole your camera!" He darted up and ran outside, didn't even bother that I wouldn't have been caught in the middle of it had we been alone.
I'm not born.
I babysat for a single mum down the road. She was going out with her new boyfriend. Cute, grade 5-year-old boy. Very timid though, and I myself was 15 at the time. Night's going fine, and we decide to do some arts and crafts. He gets up and runs over to grab some scissors and runs back, and I say, "Hold up, slow down. You shouldn't run with those, it's bad and dangerous." He instantly drops the scissors and starts sobbing, turns around.
Yo, I'm fucking hungry. Go cook me up a pizza, bitch. Get it? What type of pizza do you want, baby?
And say I'm confused and ask
Go
what's
a
going
pizza.
on.
Do you have it?
To a drawer.
Yeah, I do. I know how to cook it.
Over 20 seconds,
I've got
he
it
manages to
ingredients.
struggle out.
Cool.
It's a
Hey,
silver
go cook me up a
drawer,
fucking pizza now.
but
Got it. I'll be right back, baby Jelly Master. Good girl,
is a
go now,
large
bitch.
knife, which I can see has specks of blood on it. I turn around to him, and he's taken his pants off. On his legs, I see countless cuts, some scars looking years old. Started following me again. My heart sank, and I had a horrible feeling that if I didn't get inside the gate before they got to me, I'd never be seen again.
I put it
I
on
broke
for
into
you.
a sprint and screamed into
Good
my
girl,
phone that I'd been
Melissa.
followed and for my friend to
Oh,
not
no.
hang on. The gate had just started to close behind another resident's car, and I barreled through it, sprinting the way back to my apartment and locking the door. After about 3 hours, I went to take my dog to go potty before bed, and out of curiosity or sheer stupidity, I walked back towards the gates I came through, still safe within the fence, and I saw the Escalade parked on the other side of the road, waiting just outside the camera's field of view. I calmly turned and walked my dog onto the interior apartment complex out of their sight. They came back to the same spot every night for several days, and after that, I never saw them again. I live with 3 other guys in a duplex. What happened was around Christmas time, and our living community consists of a mix of college kids and families. One evening, my girlfriend and I arrived at the vacant house around 8 p.m. All the lights were off, which was normal, and upon entering we smelled the welcoming scent of freshly baked cookies. Turning on the kitchen light, we felt the heat of the oven radiate through the chilly home, and oddly enough, there were no cookies. There were a couple of Tupperware containers pulled out from the cabinet, but no cookies in them. Slightly stranger, 8x8 brownie containers were found in the sink, and there was a spatula covered in cookie dough, chocolate chip to be precise. Who bakes cookies in those square containers? One by one, my roommate came back to the house. Will, Jack, Brian. Jack claims to not have baked any cookies, as well as Will. Brian is known to bake all the time, so we waited for him to return. Lo and behold, he comes back and swears he hadn't baked anything. We all looked at each other in confusion and dismay. Who would come into a college kid's house and do such a thing? And might I add, no belongings were stolen. Our 51-inch TV was still there along with all the gaming consoles and music equipment, clothes and laptop. Upon further investigation, we concluded the house was completely empty for a total of roughly 4 hours, and there was in fact cookie residue on both the spatula and the Tupperware. The trash cans inside and outside the house had no evidence of any cookie business going down. Whatever happened to me and my roommates is truly incredibly unexplainable. This happened 24 years ago, and isn't a story I share often. My friend Mike and I are at a bar one night with a friend of ours. We're there with our friend Art, an older guy, and we've known him for a few years from hanging out in clubs. We're in our early 20s, and Art is in his mid-30s or so. But hey, we're all having fun and trying to pick up chicks, so age isn't an issue with us. The night comes to a close, and Art asks us if we want to go to a party with him in Westchester. It's about a 30 to 40 minute drive from where we are, but in the opposite direction of home. There's no guarantee of how big or fun this party would be, so we politely declined and headed to the after-hours spot near our house. Fast forward a few days. We read about a girl going missing out in Westchester. We joke and say, thank God we weren't out there, and let the news pass. Push over a wardrobe, and he started thumping the wall. That event has stayed with me all these years. It started when I went on vacation for a few days about a year ago in November. I came back, and the back door that leads into the stairs to the basement was unlocked. I had a roommate called Alex, who didn't come very often because she practically lived with her girlfriend, and I assumed that she had just forgotten to lock the door. We mostly use this door because it's closer to the side of the house that we park on. I let the dogs outside and then make sure to lock the door and go to bed. 3 a.m. hits, and the dogs wake up and start pacing like they're nervous and acting weird. I calm them down and go back to sleep. Then they go insane at around 4, and I decide to let them out. I go to the back door, and the door is slightly open. I freak out and call Alex. She's let friends crash in the basement before, but she usually says something, and says that she hasn't had anyone over. I decide at this point it's probably best to have a weapon for protection. Check out the basement, grab a bat as well, and make sure one of the dogs comes with me. I turn on the lights and notice on the floor.
I'm talking out of character for a second. Say who's here now because I'm not waiting that long to get $500 again. As you can tell, my Roblox had to update. This house cost $500 and I'm not waiting that long again. So yeah, she's still the same person, but the only difference is she lives here now. So yeah, don't worry, still the same person, shit like that. Like I said, the only difference, she lives here. That's the only difference now, that she lives here now. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Three, two, one. Well, shit. 3, 2, 1. Action.
Just got a sinking feeling in my stomach when I looked at it. I kept walking down the stairs, and as I got close to the bottom, the driver's side door opens, and a man gets out quickly. I keep walking towards the garage, and he starts moving towards our driveway. That was the point when something inside me told me to scream for my parents.
Here you go.
And
Here's your pizza, baby.
lock myself in the car.
Good girl, Melissa.
I did exactly that. And this guy who was halfway up my driveway at this point turned around and ran back.
God damn it, I have
to reach the streets and exit the neighborhood
You're welcome.
and get back onto the expressway. My parents were out at a concert, and my sister was at home. And it was about 7:30 p.m. when I decided to head to my boyfriend's house, who lives 5 minutes away. Now, before I left, I had this weird nagging feeling that I need to leave our living room light on, as well as the porch lights. This is important for later. So I left them on, got in my car and drove to my boyfriend's house. An hour later I get a notification on my phone that the Ring camera that is positioned at our front porch went off. I immediately knew something was wrong, because I knew no one was supposed to be home for a while. So I opened up the app and didn't see anything, and I'm waiting for the video to populate and see a guy in a black hoodie walk up to our porch, knock on the door, then moving away from the porch into the dark.
Thank you, baby
Now
daddy.
the way our camera is positioned makes it difficult to see his face, but my dad was adamant the guy had a mask on. About a minute after that I get notified again, and it shows the guy walking back up to the door, knocking a bit louder, then moving away from the porch again. At this point, I knew it wasn't a prank, so I let off the siren through the app, hoping it would deter him. But when I didn't see him in the camera, I knew he had gone through the backyard, so I called the cops. The way the dispatcher was talking to me, it almost seemed like she thought it was a false alarm, but I was insistent that someone was trying to break in. She asked me to drive back to my house, and once I get there to call them back. I feel like unless I called them back, they had no intentions of sending a cop to check on things. My boyfriend and I drive up to my house, and don't pull up in the driveway, but park across from my house and turn off my car lights. I had left my sister's window blinds open, thank God, and kept looking at the window from my car, as I knew that it was the only way to see into the house, and dialed the cops again. 30 seconds into the call, I noticed flashlights through the window, and I tell the dispatcher. I initially thought it could have been a car driving from the other side of the house, but that thought was shot within 10 seconds when I saw the silhouette of a man looking through the window. The moment I saw the silhouette, I yelled into the phone, "Someone's in my house," Please hurry. The dispatcher told us to drive out of the court and park a bit away for safety while we wait for the cops. About a minute or two of us sitting in the car and checking behind us, my boyfriend yelled, "I see him walking ahead." And we see a guy in a black hoodie, holding a bag, fast walking down the street to our right and hiding behind the shadows of a corner house. We later put two and two together, and we think he left my house, cut through the PG&E grassy area, and tried to escape down the street, not knowing my car was parked there. I saw him and shined my high beams on him, so he knew I saw him, and at that point he began running towards a parked SUV that was parked in front of us the entire time. He got in the car and immediately turned it on and started driving. At that point, adrenaline kicked in for me, and I floored him while trying to catch up with him while the dispatcher and my boyfriend are telling me to stop driving and park because it isn't safe to chase after him. 10 seconds after we park and the SUV is turning right, I see a cop behind us and immediately rolled down my window and gestured to the cop that that's the guy that's driving ahead of us, and he floored it to catch up with him. The cop came back and told me that he missed him and didn't see in which direction the guy fled. I drove back to my house and were met by 5 more cops
That's why I
who
hate
came
feds.
unmuted, and a
They can't
helicopter
do shit wrong.
hovering over the whole valley in search for him.
So I gotta do it.
Turns out the guy broke through my parents' window and focused his attention on their room and stole thousands of dollars worth of jewelry, including my parents' wedding jewelry, as well as my grandparents' and aunt's jewelry. My aunt
If
passed
I was
away
the
from
government,
cancer
I
over
would
10 years ago.
fire
When I
all
reached mine in my
cops
sister's room
and
is
make
when I
no
had pulled up
cops.
to the house because he's
They
rummaging
can't
through
do
a
the
bit of our
job
stuff,
right.
but absolutely
Pretty
nothing was
much.
stolen from our rooms.
They
The
cannot do
cops
the job
believed that I bought
right.
myself
So
time to
may
get to
as
the
well
house by
fire
leaving the
all of
lights on,
them.
because he took extra time to ensure no one was home, and that gave me time to pull up to my house and deter him before he stole more. They still haven't caught the guy, but I guess a house
Of
down the
course.
street from ours was broken into hours before ours was.
Of course they
Maybe
haven't. The feds
10
are
minutes
lazy.
away from ours.
The cops are
The cops
fucking lazy,
believed the guy
cunt.
tried to blend into the neighborhood for that extra hour.
Shit.
So he bought himself time for the cops to stop searching so that he could move on. There were numerous reports of suspicious SUVs parked with its lights off in other surrounding neighborhoods just sitting there,
Fuck the
which is
feds.
why the cops believed he was trying to blend in and buy time.
Fuck
To
the
the person
cops.
who broke into our home and stole my parents' priceless jewelry and made us now live in fear, let's not meet again.
That's why you should
As a
carry a
kid
gun
growing up,
everywhere.
I lived in a
If
pretty
you had a
secluded
gun, you can
neighborhood
shoot
where
him.
my bus would drop me off from school.
Self-defense.
I had
at
to
your
walk
house.
through a small wooded area
Keep shooting him
and
until
a
he's
good
dead.
distance down the road to get home. The houses
Why
were not
not?
close together, and nobody was ever outside or anything. That led to some
Keep
less
shooting
than
him
pleasant
until he's
encounters
dead.
with strange drivers. I remember a black
You sound
car
like a
with tinted
psychopath.
windows would occasionally visit while
I
I
am a
was outside.
psychopath. Trust me.
They would speed at me and seemingly try to
That's
hit
why
turn
I said
around.
to you,
and do it again.
I don't care
I had to
about
hop
other
neighbor's fence twice
patients
to avoid being
at the
struck,
mental.
as they would even come up
wall
on the grass and
over
skip
here.
the fence. I
Fair
was too
enough.
young to have any friends that drove at the time, so it wasn't one of them
But
playing
still,
a messed up prank.
Stick by
I
me.
don't know why they
Even
did
though you're a
this, but I remember them
psychopath,
coming down my street a few
Still,
times
you're a
as kid.
teenager.
Whenever I was in a
You can
yard
get
or
hurt
out on
from
the street,
adult psychopaths.
they would just drive at cool pace past me. Another time I was in middle school walking home.
Oh
I did
no.
dress nice that day, but in my opinion, I definitely still looked like a
I will
child.
hurt them.
A man in a faded
No,
red truck
they will
slowly
hurt
paced
you.
behind me. He rolled down his window and
They're
asked,
older than you,
"Hey,
and
are
they
you broke down
know
anywhere?
how
You
to
need a
fight.
ride?" I politely
You think
declined,
that
saying I
matters?
didn't drive.
You think I
Are
care
you sure? I
if
don't know
they're
why,
older
but
than
him
me?
asking if I was sure gave me a chill. I politely
Older don't
reaffirmed
mean
that I was
shit.
in middle school and couldn't drive, which was probably a stupid thing to say, consider. He still slowly paced me. Though
Older
we were
you
both
are,
silent, it was probably only
easier
about
you
10 seconds,
fall.
but every passing
What do you
moment was
mean?
increasingly heavy. I was right about to bolt when he drove
If I
off
can't
to the
beat
end of
them,
the street.
I'll kick
I
them in the
ran
nuts.
the rest of the way home.
Then they'll
Went
fall
inside
there
and from my kitchen
and cry
window
like a bitch.
watched that same
Then I'll
truck
kick
slowly
them while
drive
they're
down
there.
my street
Keep
twice.
kicking them, keep kicking
I
them.
told myself maybe he was just an
Until
awkward
they
guy who was
bloody
bad
up.
at picking up women.
What
But
blood
why did he come down my
everywhere.
street again twice after I
Then
got home?
I'll be
Why did he continue to pace me
satisfied.
trying to pick up a woman who clearly looked like a school kid?
You really
Maybe
don't
he was
care.
debating on taking me.
Nope.
Maybe
I
he
do not
really
care,
was
like
just
I
a
said.
strange person. Your face. I don't think I've ever been anywhere as dark as that. The food was decent, and it was fun experiencing eating sloppily in a crowded restaurant. My girlfriend and I made out a bit just for the thrill of it, doing it so publicly without being noticed. In the middle of the meal, I started hearing a familiar voice out in the restaurant. It sounded exactly like Fred. I told my girlfriend, but she said I was crazy. So I shouted into the total darkness, "Hey, Fred!" The voice stopped talking, but there was no response. After a moment, I heard the voice again, so I shouted, "Hey, Fred Parker!" Out of the darkness, I heard him reply, "Did someone say my name?" My mind was blown. Even though Fred didn't know when my anniversary was, even though he picked a random day and time to have dinner, even though all three of us lived in a different city from the restaurant, we all managed to show up there for a meal at the exact same time. The funniest thing about it was that we wouldn't go over to join him because we had no idea where he was. We arranged to meet at the coffee shop across the street once we were done with our meals. Weird glitch, massive coincidence,
Where's your son at?
intentional troll from
He's
Fred.
at school.
Take your pick.
Fair enough.
I work
Oh
at
no,
the
baby
criminal
daddy,
justice
bro.
field,
Daddy.
where I see a
Oh
lot
no,
of
baby
crime,
daddy.
and I'm also naturally a
Senpai,
follower
master.
of scary movies and
You got
stories
them
in
right in
general.
my dark queen.
So I have to disclaim that I
Yeah,
do
I
have a
sure am,
heightened
baby
sense
daddy.
of paranoia. But my girlfriend and her roommate both agreed this was
Goddamn
weird.
right.
I was out walking my girlfriend's roommate's dog as she was working a night shift in their neighborhood, which is a very safe suburb of New York. I walked across the parking lot and to this
I
field
sure
in
am.
the middle of a rotary or roundabout, whatever you call them. I lived in Boston for a while, and they call them rotaries, and was screwing around on Reddit since it was near midnight and in the middle of quarantine, so there were no cars out. The dog had a long leash, so she was sniffing around, and then I saw her stop and stare toward the road. I looked up and saw a black SUV stopped in the rotary. I pulled on my COVID mask that was on my chin. Since no one was around, I had it off. And some people in New York are touchy about that, which is understandable. Just in case they stopped to lecture me, and I didn't care to engage in argument. I looked back at my phone, and then back up, and the SUV was still there. It was a family. Mother, father in the front, and a 12-year-old daughter, or something like that, in the back seat. I was a bit startled because they were all just blankly staring directly at me. I sort of waved and nodded, and started walking the dog a bit around the grass, and they started to move slowly. They came around the rotary, and I looked back, and all of them were staring at me again. I figured they may talk to me, so I stopped and waited for them to get around the circle. But when they approached, they kept driving very slowly, all staring directly at me. I gave another half wave and they drove past me, still slowly and staring. And then back around the circle, and then again around the circle. Literally all of them, blank and staring me, even with a little girl in the back seat. They did this a few more times, and I started to walk up to the edge of the circle to engage, which is normally something I would not do.
Yes,
But it was a family, so I felt a little bit more brave. They sped up a bit and went around the corner and turned off the rotary. I started to feel even weirder, so I decided I would walk back
After
to
when
their
we fuck
apartment
here,
building
I will
and
show
enter
this
the rotary
house.
again. I was watching them from the corner
I
of
will
my
pick
eye,
up my son.
and they were still staring.
Then I'll meet you
I
at the
started picking up the
fucking,
pace.
you know.
And they turned off the rotary towards me, and I picked up the pace as they followed me.
No,
Once
I
I
will
got to
wait
the
for you
sidewalk,
off
I turned
camera.
around because I didn't want them to
I'll
know
wait for
which
you off
door
camera.
I was walking into.
Thank you, you're
It's on
welcome.
a strip mall with a few other apartment buildings and stores, and they stopped about 30
Oh,
feet
what?
away,
I'm saying
and they were all
I have to
staring
say
out
here
the front
at
window.
the hospital for a
The
couple of
little girl
days.
was in the center seat.
Oh yeah, that's
staring
right.
too. I once again raised my arm.
Cause I just woke
Can
up
I
from a
help you?
coma.
And got no response at all.
Oh
I
yeah.
stood there and no movement. I took my phone out and typed their license plate into a note app. I was thinking this is starting to get weird. I then slowly turned on the other side of
Well,
the parking
shit.
lot, all still staring, until they got to the end and I rushed into the apartment
If you
building,
want,
which
I
luckily
will.
needs a code to enter.
If
I
you
got up,
want,
told my girlfriend and her roomie about it in the morning, and they both freaked out.
if you
I
want,
watched them out the
I
window.
will
They come back up
contact
to
my
where I was
boss
standing on the sidewalk,
to
just
try
sat
to
there with
convince
their car.
him. There's nothing wrong with
I could
you.
only see the roof.
There's no side
It felt like
effects
10 minutes before
of being in
they
a
slowly
coma.
started to drive away.
You know.
I
Yes,
can't stop
please.
thinking about their
Cool.
creepy ass blank stare. Somehow it made it creepy.
I'll tell him after
and it
we
was a
fuck.
normal looking family with
Good
a young
girl.
daughter.
Thanks.
If it was like two younger guys, I could have marked it off as they were bored and just
Well,
messing with me. But this
after
made
when I
no
fuck
sense.
her, I'll see ya.
Last night was very
At the hospital or at my
My girlfriend
mansion.
and I got into a pretty
See ya whenever the
I
fuck
was
I see
exhausted
ya.
from it, and I just
Shit,
didn't want
not-
to fight anymore for the night.
Not now.
She finally
Fuck.
said to
You know
me,
what I mean?
I don't want to look at your face.
Don't go yet.
So I
But
said,
you
fine.
know
You
what I
don't
mean?
have to.
Shit.
And so at about 9 o'clock, I gathered up my pillows and went and laid down on the couch and fell asleep. Then I woke up at 2:30 and the dot closed. I had to use the
Oh, I know
bathroom,
I am, Daddy.
so I went to do that.
That's why.
Then came back and laid down on the
Yes.
couch.
I am.
I just got this weird feeling, and it was just
Goddamn
too quiet in the house, so I poked my head into the bedroom to check. My girlfriend was fast
No
asleep,
bond.
and our 10-month-old son was sound asleep in his crib. I figured, what the hell, I'm over it, and slowly climbed into bed and went to sleep. Now I live in Arizona. It's been kind of rainy and cool the last few days, and to us, it's so nice that our bedroom window was open. There was a nice slow breeze coming in, and it was very relaxing. All of a sudden, I'm awoken by my son. He's crying very loudly, and was standing up in his crib, which is very unusual. Unlike most babies, he slept through the night since he was born. Sure, he makes little noises and rolls around a little, but usually finds his pacifier and dozes back off to sleep. I open my eyes to see my girlfriend has already gotten him, and she picks him up and all of a sudden stops crying. I check the time and it's 3. I'm like, maybe it's just one of those nights. So she brings him over and puts him between us. He rolls, makes noises, but doesn't want to go to sleep. So she makes him a bottle. While he's eating, I doze back off to sleep. Now I'm dreaming, but I'm still in bed, in the same position. It's dark and everything's quiet. Except I can hear someone crying, weeping and moaning, like a woman grieving someone close to her has just passed. It's a long, drawn-out cry, eerie like the breeze coming through the window. All of a sudden, my eyes jolt open. There's sweat dripping down my forehead. I can still hear the cry, but this time I know I'm awake, so it's real. I spin around fast, and that's when I see her.
Yep, I
She's
saw him, baby
tall,
daddy.
dressed in
You
all
got that
black,
what,
like she just came from a funeral. Her face distressed, like she's been mourning for eternity. The wind came through the window
I am,
behind
Daddy.
her, and it's so strong the curtain is blowing like a flag. I see her as she reaches for my son who's lying asleep between me and my girlfriend. So I did what any father would do. I grabbed the blanket with my left hand and came down over with my arm over my son, and the blanket covering both of us so that I could hold him tight. All of a sudden, a sheer scream rings out from what I assume to be the woman, and a gust of wind hits the window hard, and then there's quiet. Nothing but my girlfriend snoring and my son's breathing, and my very heavy breath is all that can be heard, and a slight little breeze that rattles the blinds on the windows. So I lie awake for a little while and eventually fall asleep clutching my son. I woke up this morning and asked my girlfriend if she heard anything last night. Yeah, I thought I heard someone crying. It sounded like it was coming from outside. At that point, I knew it was real. Now I'm a big, burly guy with a beard, not afraid of much, and I was a tough kid growing up. But when I was a kid, I was afraid of one thing. After I went to a friend's house, and his uncle told us the story of La Llorona, a Mexican folklore tale that I always believed was real. I never really wanted to stay outside after dark, and never slept with my window open. Of course, I never told anyone, because like I said, I'm tough and didn't want any of my friends to think I can't.
If my boss says no, you can't go out, do you want me to slap him?
Much closer eye on my son from now on.
You know? Then maybe he'll be convinced of when you're out of the hospital. Not the mental side of the hospital, but the normal hospital.
And I was pregnant with my second child.
Cool.
I stayed home during the day with him. One day after lunchtime, I got a knock at the door.
Let him
When I
busting out
looked
inside
through the peephole, I saw a guy wearing a shirt with the logo for an appliance company.
Good girl.
It was like LG or Whirlpool or something. I opened up the door, and he said he was going around inspecting the appliances of the apartments to see who qualifies for new or replacement stuff. That he was going to get me, and detailed exactly what he was planning on doing to me. My mum never told me exactly what he said, but it was bad enough. She called the police. The police were able to track the number to the creepy father. I didn't know what was happening until the cops showed up to my school to escort me home, because the creepy father wasn't home. He was outside my room waiting for me. The man went to jail, and then to the inpatient psych. He sent me letters from the hospital, which was in violation of the restraining order he had been granted, so we went from the hospital back to jail. Man in your underwear, let's never meet again. This happened 8 years ago, during the summertime. I was at my mum's house, but she barely lived there anymore. But she spent most of her time at her boyfriend's, and my sister was very often left alone. I was a student in another city, but I came back in my house during these holidays. I was 19 and my sister was 16 at the time. Our house had 2 floors, a living room and a kitchen on the first, 3 bedrooms and a bathroom on the second. The kitchen and living room had 2 door windows opening to a large terrace. From the terrace, you could go into the backyard by some stairs. We didn't really use the ground floor as it was very dark due to the small windows, and it was basically a garage and office just to do our homework. It's summer and very hot. I just discovered Game of Thrones and had 2 seasons to watch. Every evening, I took my laptop, made myself comfortable on the terrace near the kitchen, and watched an episode. My garden was surrounded by a U-shaped building, so you could see my terrace very well as my garden from the balconies. Some workmen were there for a few days, and had been working late, so I often saw them as I watched my series. They were minding their own business, and I did the same, and didn't think much of it. One morning I was sleeping late, and my sister woke me up with a whisper. There's a man in the house. I was half naked because of the heavy heat of that summer. I stood up, perfectly awake now, grabbed a shirt and went downstairs practically running. I know this is a dumb thing I do, a half-naked, helpless young woman, but I'm very protective of my little sister, and I didn't feel any fear at this point. I went down to the kitchen and couldn't find a sharp object, so I took a fork, and when I asked her where she saw him, she told me she was watching TV in the living room, and because the windows were open, she saw a man in the reflection standing just behind her. She jumped off the couch to find herself in front of him. He was a tall man in his late 30s. She had no chance in a fight. The guy had one of his feet on the first step to the second floor where I was sleeping. She shouted, "Who are you?" to receive no reply, and just walked quietly back into the kitchen where the door window was wide open, and took the stairs back up to the garden. As soon as I heard that, I ran into the back garden with my harmless weapon to the gate in our front garden. I even went in the street looking for him. I'm sure that if I had found him, I would not have been so brave anymore, and would have maybe peed myself. But there was no one. Suddenly I realized my sister was still alone in the house, and perhaps he'd gone back. I returned to the kitchen, searched the house, but it turns out we were alone. That's when I realized my computer was missing. My sister told me that the guy didn't have anything in his hands when he left. That was the scariest part, because it meant he was either in the house for quite some time before he took the laptop and came back to do whatever he planned to do, or there was someone else there. I got dressed, and my sister and I went to the nearby police station. Very angry with the policeman.
Of course.
She was a minor, so stayed with her. And she told them everything and described the guy with a lot of detail. They asked if we could recognize him.
Here's a
And
water.
she said that,
Here's a
without a
couple
doubt,
of
she could.
nugs.
They
He's
said,
doing smoke.
"You know, it's highly unlikely that we find him. You should be thankful that you and your sister
So we do it
didn't have
now.
anything
Doing
worse happen."
smoke. I'm fuck.
Almost like she needed to be
Dan,
more scared.
good girl, mother whore.
When we got back home, she was afraid, and I was angry with the loss of my expensive laptop that I needed for art school and had all my pictures in it. We sat there at the terrace and spoke about what happened and how lucky we were that she saw the man before he came upstairs. This is when I noticed the workmen weren't there anymore. From my street, no one can even know we have a backyard and another entrance to the house. My sister told me he was acting like he knew a bit of the house. Maybe it wasn't the first time, and we didn't even notice he had been there before. I'm now certain it was one of those men working in that neighborhood balcony who'd been watching me that broke in that morning. From that day, we double-locked the doors and slept in the same bed for weeks. This happened a while back. I was probably around 10 to 11, meaning my brother, Alex, was around 8 or 9. We were walking home from the bus, which takes 7 minutes to do, when I noticed something was off. I didn't see anything at first, but I just knew something was wrong. So my brother and I started walking home. As the only two who got off at our stop, him and I, this blue and silver beat-up truck drives past us, and I think nothing of it. It never slowed down or stopped, it just kept on going. Alex and I were holding hands, as my grandmother always told me to do with him, as he's my younger brother, and I don't want anything to happen to him. Nothing happens at first, but then the same truck drives around again, driving our way this time. There was a cul-de-sac at the end of our road, and it was driving slower this time as we went up the road and turned out of sight. Now Alex and I were nearing the three-way intersection that connected the cul-de-sac road to the other side road. Right up the main road, the man just drove down. I happened to look down the street and see the truck driving real slow down the street towards us again. I knew we had to run. I knew there was no other option. I knew that if we didn't, my brother and I would not be safe. I don't know how I knew, but I did. As soon as we passed a house that blocked us from view, I turned to Alex and spoke to him exactly 4 words. No questions. Just run. And we did. In our driveway, which is about 100 feet long, there's a row of bushes and pine trees that divides our home from the next door neighbor. I dragged him in there and told him to be quiet and that I would explain later. I watched as the same truck drove down around the cul-de-sac again, before coming to a stop right in front of our house. I had to hold my brother's mouth shut because he was crying, and I was scared whoever was following us would hear him and hurt us. I was more worried for his safety at this point than my own. I was in fight or flight mode. I was the big sister. I had to protect him. I looked at him and said the truck was following us, and I told him to not be scared. I said I wouldn't let anyone hurt him, and it seemed to calm him down a little bit. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, the door to the truck opened.
You
and
have
out
to have
came a
sex
man.
with
He
your
was tall,
son,
skinny and a mess.
like,
Short hair covered by a
when he
torn
gets home
baseball
from
cap,
school.
ripped jean
Got it,
shorts,
baby
and a puke
master.
To
green
get him
tank
a
top.
horse, daddy.
He entered our yard and looked around a bit. Alex and I were still in the
Oh,
bushes,
big booty
and I was
horse.
trying to find a way to get to our house safely
Yep, I
without
saw him,
getting
baby
Steve's
daddy,
attention.
brother. I mean, daddy,
The
baby.
guy left
Daddy,
after
you
what
on
felt
me.
like
Yeah,
forever
that's your
and entered his car. He started to drive away slowly. I waited a few minutes to make sure he was gone before turning to my brother and saying, "We need to run. When I count to 3, we're going to run behind the house to the back door, okay?" He agreed, and we waited a few more seconds before I started counting. I still didn't have a good feeling about this, but I knew we had to move. I started counting. As soon as I hit 3, we booked it across our driveway and into our front yard to go around the house. As soon as we left our spot, I heard it, the sound of accelerating. He saw us. He waited for us to leave. He chased us up to our driveway as we ran around the side. I grabbed Alex's hand and practically dragged him around the house and made him run ahead of the garage door to see if it was locked while I searched for my house key. The guy, at this point, was about 20 feet away from me. The garage door was open, and I swear to God this man ran around the opposite corner of the house that we did as we entered the house. I entered and slammed the door shut, locking it and deadbolting it. I didn't stop running until I opened the house door and ran downstairs with Alex screaming our safe word. Our grandma made a safe word for us that was a normal word that we could use if we were in danger. We just had to
Done, baby
scream.
daddy.
It woke my aunt up, who worked the night shift and was asleep. We told her everything,
I know, yeah,
and she stayed up with us
you
until my
got
grandma got home. We called the police, and that was my first time ever interacting with an officer. The man was never caught.